Hi everyone, so welcome to our talk on MetaHuman Animator in real time. First, just a few introductions. So I'm Colin Nash. I'm an engineering lead on the MetaHuman team, and this is Jihyun Yu. He's a research director on the studio research team. We've both been working in animation, and specifically real-time animation, for many years, even before joining Epic. I was working on the Persona system at Cubic Motion, and Jihyun was leading the team at Hypersense. Since joining Epic, we've both been heavily involved in all the MetaHuman Animator releases and all the different features, right from the sort of original idea. So we're really pleased to be here today to talk about some of the real-time features in particular. I'll just run through a few of the things we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start with a bit of a kind of overview of MHA and Unreal 5.6 and some background to MetaHuman Animator. I'm then going to give a bit of a live demo of some of the new real-time features. I'll include in that a few sort of hints and tips about how to get the best out of the system and things to look out for. Jihyun will then take over. He's going to do a deep dive into the ML models behind the scenes, some of the ways we created them, the data that was used, and all the effort that went into this. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A, hopefully with some good questions that we can answer. So to start with, a sort of background to MetaHuman Animator and some of the sort of guiding vision that we've been thinking about as we've been building it. So a few things we've been trying to hit with all the different releases and the different features we add to it. We think of this as a kind of feature set that we're, a number of different features, but they all combine to a greater thing. And the overall goal here is we want to capture a digital representation of real performances. So we're trying to make it as accurate as possible, as true to the performance your actor did, rather than trying to go too far on the artistic side. And the idea is that if we can give you a really good reflection of what really happened, you can then build on that downstream to get the artistic result you want. So MetaHuman Animator and the results we give isn't necessarily the end. You might want to apply, extra things downstream, or even sort of edit some hand keys and things to hit the creative performance, but it's a real reflection of what happened on the day. We strongly believe that the sooner you can see results and in-context results, this really helps the creative process. So our goal is to give you, not just that accurate performance, but give you it as quickly as possible and in the context that you're working. So you can iterate, if you get a bad take, not just seeing a bad take from the actor, but you can know you've got a bad take in the final results, and you can maybe run another take or adjust something on in the situation you're working. So this is kind of something Unreal Engine's doing throughout it, but we're trying to bring this specifically to animation and performance capture. Another thing that we've been looking for is we don't ideally want to dictate to you the way you capture or the hardware you use for capture. So we would like to be in a sort of open ecosystem where you can pick and choose different hardware, pick and choose different approaches to capture based on your situation, your budget, and that might be different for different takes, even on the same shoot. And then finally, we're trying to make sure that you don't need to be an expert animator to use these systems. So, if you've got a lot of animation experience, that'll absolutely help you get the best out of the system, but this should be available to anyone. Anyone should be able to use it and still get great results. I have a bit of a sort of mental model we use for some of the ways we try to approach this, and that's shown in this diagram. So if we start on the left, we've got capture devices, and we're looking to support a whole range of different capture devices. In the first release with MetaHuman Animator in 5.2, we're supporting iPhone, stereo HMC, but any stereo HMC, any of the different iPhone models, but we've always been looking to expand that as we added audio-driven animation so that you could use audio. But the idea is basically any capture device that can give media in a format that we can ingest, you should be able to use. If we move on to the processing, so this, again, shouldn't care about the media that's coming into it. We offer different types of processing. So I mentioned the audio-driven animation that we added. And all of these output what we call the MetaHuman facial description standard. So this is a defined set of curves that represent the facial movements of a MetaHuman. This has been the same. This standard came out with 5.2 release, and we've not changed it since. So the idea here is we've got this kind of consistent API. So all animation coming out of MetaHuman Animator will be in the same form, the same standard. And that means everything downstream, your actual MetaHuman character, doesn't need to know about the upstream way this was captured, the upstream way this was processed. So this is a kind of mix and match approach that we offer. So you can swap out different characters, you can swap out different ways of processing the data, and you can swap out different capture devices without that affecting your overall end-to-end approach and pipeline. So that was a quick little bit of background about the way we've been thinking about MetaHuman Animator as we build it. We think this 5.6 release is probably the biggest release we've made yet on MetaHuman Animator towards those goals. So there's quite a lot of improvements to MetaHuman Animator in UE 5.6, but I'm going to cover what I kind of think of as the big three. So the first of these is some significant improvements to our audio-driven animation. So this not only gives higher quality now, but it also adds automatic plausible head motion. This is both translation, so sort of the movement of the head that way, and rotation. And we also offer improved artistic controls. So we now let you choose from a list of moods, and that will impact the way the solve works, so that you can kind of match the mood to the performance, and we can try and get a more accurate performance just from the audio. The next one, which I think is a really big step in terms of opening up the different capture devices, is we now allow animation from mono video. So this means any device that can capture a mono video, a phone, a webcam, a GoPro, you can record that and you can process it offline to get great animation results rather than the depth-based stereo approach that we had in the existing pipelines. So this really means sort of pretty much any device can become a facial capture system. To help with this, what we've done is we've also done an overhaul of Capture Manager, which was the way to ingest data for processing. So we made that easier, we've made it faster, so just sort of helps ingesting different types of data and getting them ready for processing. And then the final of the big three is real-time animation, which is what we're going to focus on today. So this is giving us high fidelity, real-time animation from a wide range of different devices. So it's hard to talk about real-time animation without seeing it in real time. So I'm going to switch into Unreal Engine, and we'll go through a little bit of a demo to show off some of the features. So we've got Unreal Engine here. This is 5.6, and I'll give a little bit of information about kind of what the level you're seeing is. So this is based on one of the MetaHuman lighting samples that are available on Fab. This one's the split lighting sample, and I just changed the color to purple to sort of match up with our theme this year. I've got two MetaHuman presets. So these are MetaHuman presets coming from the new MetaHuman Creator in Unreal Engine. So this one is Walter that we've got over here. Sorry, that's Kelvin, and this is Walter over here with the beard. I'm going to show on these presets, but everything I show could be done on any MetaHuman. So this could be something much more custom. And then I've just got a few cameras to jump around. So this is a very simple level. You could create this yourself within a few minutes. I'm going to start by showing our webcam use for live. So to do that, I'm going into Live Link. So all of our real-time systems are built as Live Link sources. So this means that all of the existing things that work for Live Link, that's particularly used for a lot of body mocap and these kind of things, all those same approaches, all those same tools are available for the face as well. And I'm going to add a source and add a video source. So I'll just show that again. So I was choosing add source, and there's MetaHuman video. This is added in my source, and if I click on here, we can see that I can choose my video device. So I'm choosing my webcam that I've got over here, and I can choose my video format, and so that's the resolution and the frame rate. Now, you might think the thing to do here would be pick the highest resolution possible. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to favor frame rate over resolution. So what we find is a higher frame rate, you're going to pick up a lot more of the fidelity of lip movements, blinks, these kind of things. We process actually quite a low resolution. So going down a bit on the resolution really isn't going to affect the quality that much. So in this particular case, I think I'll just run at 60 FPS, and I'll choose 1280 by 720. I'm going to give it a subject name. So this will be what's used to represent it later when I connect it up to the MetaHuman, and click Connect. And if we click in my source, we can see the input video here. So just angle the webcam a little bit. And if I choose trackers, we can actually see it tracking my face in real time. Now, I'll mention a few of the other things we can see in this list. So we've got FPS, so this is the frame rate that we're seeing, and dropping. So if the FPS starts dropping, that means frames coming in from the camera are struggling. So sometimes in low light, they'll adjust the exposure and you'll see the frame rate drop a bit. If this is showing dropping here, this means that we're struggling to process the incoming frames at the rate they're coming in. So that probably means your GPU on your machine is struggling a bit to keep up. So I guess that's all running. We can see the state's OK. I'm just about managing to stay in frame. So we'll wire it up to our MetaHuman. If I go back to the level, I'm going to switch to just look at Kelvin. Click on Kelvin here. And it's as simple as choosing our incoming video source in the live link subject, ticking a box, and here we go. So now you can see that I'm driving from a webcam a MetaHuman in real time. Now, it's quite hard for me to kind of drive UE at the same time as staying focused on a webcam, as you can probably tell. Not the greatest performance, so I'm going to drag in Jihyun here, who can hopefully take over and drive our MetaHuman for us. So if you can stay there, Jihyun, maybe just come a little bit closer. There we go. So this is now Jihyun driving the MetaHuman, but Jihyun's features are quite different from mine, so we're getting a little bit of a different result. What I'll do is I'll jump back into the live link source, and I'll show a couple of the more advanced settings. So if I scroll down here, we can open up this smoothing area here. So by default, we do apply some smoothing to the data that we're creating. And this is because different webcams, different lighting conditions, you are going to get a little bit of jitter. And we've got a default smoothing set. But what you can do, if I jump into here and expand these parameters, what you can see here is that MetaHuman facial description standard controls that I mentioned earlier. So these are all the controls that we're generating from our real time to represent the face. And then for each one, you can potentially choose a smoothing method and also how to smooth. So if I take something like this and change the method to €1, you can potentially tweak these. So we'll have a bit more information. I'm not going to go into it in great detail here about what these different settings do in our documentation. But this is basically a way that if you're really trying to get the most out of the system, you can customize these settings to suit your environment, your lighting, your camera to get it as accurate as you can. I'm going to leave those on default for now for this example. And then I'm going to move on to showing capture neutrals. So if I click this, oops, sorry, expand that again. So if I click this capture neutrals button here, this will do two things. It will capture what we call a calibration, a neutral calibration. So what we're doing here is we're taking the values that we get from Jihyun's face, and we're using them to create an offset to our tracking to try and get it to match Jihyun's face a bit better. So that's kind of a way of customizing it to an actor. Now, this doesn't always give better results, but if it's struggling, this can really help. The other thing this will do is capture a neutral head position. So what this is allowing us to do is right now, Jihyun's framed in a certain place in the frame. Once it knows that we consider that a neutral position, as he moves, it can create translation values rather than just rotation values, because it now knows what we consider the kind of neutral position. So if I click that now, that's all it takes. Jihyun's nicely staying very still. And if we move back now, if you can give us a little performance, Jihyun, there we go. So you can see the eyes opened up a bit because it's fixed a little bit better to Jihyun's face. And then also if you do a little bit of movement backwards and forwards, Jihyun, you can see we're now getting head translation, whereas before we were only getting head rotation. Oh, that was me clicking out of it. So I mentioned before, this is all coming in as live link data and our animation controls. So what this means is existing tools like Take Recorder just work out the box. So I'll open up Take Recorder, and I'll drag in the Kelvin blueprint or character that we're looking at. Make sure I'm going to record in the right way. and I will choose to record some body animation. Now, this might be a bit counterintuitive that I'm recording the body, even though we're talking about the face. But with MetaHumans, all of our animation gets sent to the body, and then it's passed through to the face. And that's because we've got this head movement coming in, as well as the facial controls. So by recording these body controls, I'm recording basically the whole performance in one single set of animation. So all I need to do now is click record. And we should get 3, 2, 1. And could you give us a little performance, Jihan? There we go. And we'll stop there. So this has been recorded out to a level sequence. I can open up that level sequence, play it back, and we can see that we've recorded straight from live animation coming in. And now that's in a level sequence. If I wanted to, I could export that as an animation sequence, and I could go on to that sort of next creative step I was talking about. So that might be when some filters on the animation, that might be you want to go in and hand edit curves, but that can then become what you're using within your game or your linear content, or however you want to use it. Now, that was me taking it through the webcam source, but we've got multiple other sources for driving in real time. So I'm going to add an audio source now. So I added that in exactly the same way as the video source. Choose our microphone exactly as I did with the webcam. Give it a name, and now we have an audio source set up. So if I speak into this microphone, we've got a little level indicator, so I can just see that it's working. And the other thing worth mentioning here is the FPS. So with all of our audio processing, we output at 50 frames per second at the moment, because we found that's a kind of nice balance between the quality of result and the processing power needed to generate it. If I jump back into our demo and switch to my Walter character, I can wire up my audio source in exactly the same way as I did with my video source. So we click audio, click use live link, and now we can see we've got animation coming into a MetaHuman, all generated entirely from audio in real time. Now, there's a couple of things worth noting here. You'll see at the moment, in the real time as opposed to the offline, we don't yet have blinks or head movement that I mentioned, but these are obviously things we're looking at as we've got the ambition to get to the point where you can get a full performance just from an audio feed. If I jump down to our dual view, if Lee Jihan, it looks into the camera, we can also see that we can run multiple feeds onto multiple characters simultaneously without any problems. So you can have a few different actors. How do you think it's going so far, Jihan?
Yeah, it smells fresh air in here. Yeah.
There's one final thing I'm going to show as part of the live demo, which is media bundles. So if I jump into my media folder here, there's one I created earlier, and we'll just open it up. So this is a media bundle, which is an asset that's representing, in this case, a file media source. But if I drop this down, you'll see there's multiple media sources in here. So this is kind of an asset that's representing different media coming into Unreal Engine. In here, we can see file media source. We've got things like a stream media source, so there could be data streaming in, but also there's multiple plugins available that will add different sources. So for example, there's plugins for professional capture cards. And if you were using a professional capture card like that, this would allow you to feed in something like an SDI camera or a HDMI camera. So you could really be using kind of more professional recording equipment, more professional cameras, and still feed this into Unreal Engine. But I'm going to stick with the file media source for this demo. And the only reason I created this earlier was just because I didn't want to have to type in a path live on stage. But all I've got here is a file path to a MOV from one of our shoots earlier, and I've set it to loop. And it's simple as that. Now, if I jump back into Live Link, I'm just going to delete those subjects that we created earlier. I'll go back to my video source, but instead of choosing my webcam this time, if I drop that down, we can see that my media bundle is showing in the list. And if I click on that and click Connect, it's working exactly the same as the webcam did. So we can now see the input video being loaded off the disk. And if we switch to tracking, we can see that it's tracking that video in real time in exactly the same way as it did from the webcam feed. And we've got all the same data about sort of frames per second and resolutions coming in and all those kind of things. And unsurprisingly, if I jump back to our Kelvin character, I can wire it up in exactly the same way as I did with the other two examples. And we've got it coming in from video. I'll just pop this out and jump back in so that we can see them a little bit side by side. And we can see that this is solving from video in real time. So if you want to get the best results out of video, we'd still recommend the offline process. But what this allows you to do is sort of diagnose issues, simulate data coming in, these kind of things. You could try out different types of lighting from different videos and really analyze them to get the best results. Or it can be useful for demos like this, where it's a struggle for us both to stand in front of a webcam and not move out of the way. I think that was everything I was going to show in the live portion, so I'll just switch back to the presentation. There we go. So I showed a few different inputs there. I showed from a microphone, but that could be any audio input device. So, if you've got an audio capture card, something like that, again, you could be getting stream of audio even over the internet or something. I showed the webcam, which is probably, I imagine, the most useful one and the one that will get used the most. Any webcam that shows up in Windows should work in UE. And we've also showed the media framework with media bundles as a way of getting in the sort of SDI feeds and these kind of things. What I haven't shown there, and that's because I wanted to avoid having to set up a Wi-Fi network in here, was the mobile phone integration. So we're adding support for real-time to the existing LiveLink Face iOS application. This means that you can stream from the device animation into UE generated in real time. What this also means, though, is that you can record at the same time. So if you wanted on the iPhone, you could stream real-time animation into UE, get a real-time previs of what's happening on stage or what's happening with your performance, but you could still record the depth-based stuff at the same time. And then that could be processed offline later to give a higher quality of result. So that's one of the things we're really looking at, is this idea that you can get real-time previs, but then still do an offline processing to really push the quality up if you want to. Or if your use case means you're doing a live stream or something like that, you can push out that live data straight away. The other thing that's worth announcing is that we are releasing an Android LiveLink Face. So this is our first Android application for generating this animation. That'll be coming out in beta alongside the 5.6 release. In fact, I think it's now already live on the Play Store. This is limited to certain chipsets right now, but we're hoping to expand it. And the reason this is limited right now is because on both the iPhone and the Android application, all of the processing happens on the phone. So we're not streaming the images into UE and doing the processing in Unreal Engine as we were with the video. We're actually using the MPUs on the phone to do all of the processing. So this means you can not only have potentially more actors, because you're sort of spreading the load across different devices, but also, if your machine can't render the high quality that you want in your scene, you could potentially offload that processing onto the phone, and again, sort of split that so that you're not hitting lower frame rates or anything like that. So that was a run through of all of the kind of general device support that we're releasing in 5.6 in the product. But what we're also doing is working with manufacturers on support for specific devices. So right now, our focus has been on head-mounted camera systems because these are widely used for animation capture and these are a very common use case. But our hope is to expand that further with time. So the way these are added is these manufacturers have been developing LiveLink plugins for our system where they stream images into UE and then we process them in a similar way to the webcam. And what this means is they've all built on top of our API that is completely open to write a plugin specific to their device. But that's not limited to them. Anyone who wants to can use that API. So if you've got a specific device that can stream in images or get images into a Windows machine, you can write a plugin and then you can use it to create real-time animation. So we're hoping this will allow people to kind of play around with different ways of doing things, write plugins for different devices, and really expand that capture device ecosystem that I talked about at the start. So I've run through quite quickly there, some of the different device support and given a little demo of how to use some of them. But I just wanted to go back over those kind of top 3 hints and tips that I mentioned along the way, just to try and help everyone get the best results they can. So the first of those would be frame rate over resolution. So generally, lower frame rates are going to miss a lot of fast movement. So if you're particularly doing talking or lots of fast facial expressions. So whereas resolution, we process at quite a low resolution, so you can kind of get away with anything as long as it's maybe in the sort of 720 by 720 range, particularly if you're well framed, so if you're making use of all of the available frame area on the camera. So we'd really say favor frame rate over resolution. I also mentioned GPU contention. So both the audio and the video processing run on the GPU. And this means if Unreal Engine is also trying to render, you can get contention between them. So you might want to look at setting a maximum frame rate in your project, and then looking at what frame rate you're trying to process off the camera to kind of balance the two. And then my final hint before I hand over to Jihun would just be to experiment. So we've used this now in quite a few different areas. Hopefully most of you caught the keynote and you'll have seen the little blue segment that we did. That was all driven just from a webcam. What we find is different lighting, different cameras, even different people's facial movements. There's slightly different results, and it's really worth experimenting with, changing lights, trying out different cameras if you're really trying to push the quality. And what we really hope is people try out different things, post on the forums, and there can start being a bit of a kind of knowledge base builds up about different ways of doing things, which devices work well, which settings work best for which devices, and everyone can kind of spread that knowledge around. So that's the end of the live demo and a bit of talking about the different features that are coming out in 5.6. And I'm going to hand over to Jihun, who's going to do a bit more of a deep dive into the ML side of things behind what we just saw, and also some of the data that was captured to help build it.
Thank you, Colin. I hope you enjoyed that live demo. Now I'd like to switch gears and dive into the AI and machine learning technology that our Epic research team developed for the real-time animation. So our fundamental motivation when designing the real-time technology was the rapidly evolving landscape of the AI computing platforms. The revolution is advancing the edge computing to accommodate the powerful real-time AI solutions. And we recognize this as a transformative opportunity to build a complete end-to-end AI solutions for real-time technology. So MetaHuman Animator Real-Time leveraged this opportunity and is available on multiple platforms, such as iOS, Android, and desktop GPUs. So MetaHuman Animator is an AI solution that we built with the innovative architecture design and high-quality animation data set through extensive R&D efforts. So in this part of talk, I'd like to cover 3 key areas. First, the evolution of MetaHuman Animator Real-Time from MetaHuman Animator. Second, our efforts into the data capture and data generation pipeline to enable us the large-scale data set building. And finally, I'd like to have a deep dive into the machine learning architecture and the real-time computational flow. So the original MetaHuman Animator was designed to achieve the highest animation quality by combining the numerical optimization techniques with assisted machine learning algorithms. It utilized the calibration process to build a high-quality personalized DNA rigs, and it also used the stepped input to accurately capture the facial deformations. For the MetaHuman Animator Real-Time, we wanted to democratize the technology, making it accessible on affordable consumer devices such as webcams. But the original design was not well suited for this goal. The requirements was quite challenging. We wanted to get rid of need for depth. We want the system to run nearly 60 frames per second, achieve the best animation fidelity at real time, and introduce a plug-and-play feature where users just enter the camera frame and the tracking instantly starts. A full machine learning solution was our answer to meet all these requirements, especially with the right tool set such as the MetaHuman Creator and Animator to build a high-fidelity data set. So going for the machine learning solution meant we need to build a large-scale data set to train ML models that could actually accurately and robustly predict facial animations across various identities, performances, and environments. So we started by leveraging the existing iPhone and webcam data set, which captured from our original MetaHuman Animator project. So we scanned a large number of talents with iPhone and webcams and processed the iPhone data with the MetaHuman Animator to generate the high-quality animations. The data set covered a wide range of facial performances, including dialogue, pangrams, emotions, and facial range of motions. This data later became our foundation for synthetic data generation. In addition, we also launched a new data scanning initiative to increase the identity diversity and build a multi-view data set, which iPhone and webcam scan didn't cover. So we scan new talents using Epic's in-house face scanner in multiple locations and process the data with our proprietary face tracking and solving technology. The data set covered a wide range of 4D facial performances to build the highest quality animation data set. The animation data, along with the accurately calibrated DNA rigs from the expression scans, were utilized for the synthetic data generation. So this data processing pipeline required massive computational resources and time investment. We processed 5.5 million 4D image frames, which nearly generated 5 petabytes of the data in total. The scale of the processing took many months of continuous computations, and the large-scale infrastructure was managed by our dedicated pipeline team. And every piece of data underwent quality assurance by our team of animation experts, ensuring that we could push the animation quality to the highest level possible. And we prioritize building a representative data set with the balanced demographics, such as age, geography, and gender distributions. And this balance was quite crucial that our ML model performs consistently across the diverse user populations. So, although the face scanning projects provided invaluable data, they still represented the sparse samples in the real-world demographics. So in order to overcome this limit, we started looking at the synthetic data generation. So we used the MetaHuman Creator and Unreal Engine as a synthetic data generator. So we used the calibrated DNAs and processed animations as source data. So MetaHuman Creator enabled the random sampling of MetaHuman identity across various expressions, camera poses, backgrounds, and even lighting, while providing the ground truth annotations, such as the animation parameters and geometry. So using approximately 30 render farm nodes with high-spec GPUs, we were able to generate a large volume of synthetic images. So we generated 11,000 MetaHuman synthetic DNA rigs, and 540,000 of synthetic face images. So here are the examples of our high-fidelity synthesized face images with the associated facial landmarks annotations. These images are rendered with Unreal Engine's advanced path tracer to capture the diverse lighting variations from the HDR background images. So with our real and synthetic data set, we train the ML models and build a computational pipeline around it to achieve the real-time performance. The pipeline takes an image frame as an input and outputs MetaHuman animation controls as well as track landmark and head pose parameters too. We built 3 machine learning models. First, the face detector to locate the facial locations in the image, and the landmark and head pose tracker to track the facial landmarks as well as head pose parameters. And finally, the most important generic animation solver to predict the facial animations from the input image. The computational flow were implemented in Unreal Engine, iOS, and Android platforms by Colin and his awesome engineering team to ensure the consistent real-time frame rate. Post-processing filters are also applied, as shown in the live demo, to stabilize the outputs. This video visualizes the intermediate steps and outputs across our machine learning models. The leftmost clip shows the 2 bounding boxes, green to crop input image for the landmark and head pose tracker, and red to crop the image for the generic animation solver. 2 middle clips shows the track landmark, contour, and the dense face mesh, which are used for bounding box creation as well as the head pose estimation. The rightmost clip shows the high-fidelity animation result from our generic animation solver. Now I'd like to share a detailed structured overview of our machine learning models. So we have 2 main models, landmark and head pose tracker, and a generic animation solver, which share common foundations. The landmark tracker was the first built model, then repurposed for the generic animation solver by reusing the backbone weights as a pre-trained starting point. Both real and synthetic data were used for model training. We reduced jittering further for noise inputs by annotating the noise webcam data with our train solver and use the output as a training data set. And residual log likelihood estimation technique was applied to achieve the robust and accurate output quality. And domain adaptation technique was also applied to reduce the domain gap between the distribution of synthetic and real data set. Now, we'd like to invite you to experience the MetaHuman Animator real time for yourself. So visit our booth in the MetaHuman area to try out the demo. You can download the Unreal Engine 5.6 from the Epic Games Launcher to explore the technology on your own. And don't forget to try out Live Link Face from the Apple Store and the Google Play Store, which just got available now. So we are very excited to see the incredible experience you will create with this technology, and welcome your feedback as we continue to push the boundaries of the facial animation technology. Thank you all for joining us our talk today.